You're listening to Paris' State of Mind on Paris Underground Radio. For more great content, join us on Patreon at patreon.com/Paris Underground Radio.
Welcome to Paris, a State of Mind. Join us as we talk about the good, the bad, the ins, the outs of property rentals and purchases in and around Paris. We'll have topics for renters, owners, and visitors, share questions we are regularly asked, and more. My name is Gail Boisclair of Perfectly Paris, and my co-host is Marie Pistinier of Lokim Paris. Be a part of it. Both of us are proud members of the SPLM, the first representative body of furnished rental professionals. Hello, everyone. We are back in the Paris State of Mind podcast room and continuing on with our series talking to people about living in their particular arrondissement. And today it gives me great pleasure to welcome one of my dear Perfectly Paris owners, and we'll find out what they think about living in their arrondissement. Today, it's Bob Wasinger, and I have to say, I had to ask Bob how I said his name because I was going to say it a French way. So I've obviously lived in this country for too long, and I was going to say Wasinger, and I'm like, it really doesn't sound American. I don't think that's the right way. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And it's my pleasure to have you on. So what arrondissement are you currently living in?
We live in the 17th in the Batignolles area. And we've been told that the French say it's known for the bourgeois bohemians or the bobos, but we don't really fit into that category, but that's where we are.
It is definitely very bobo. It didn't always used to be that way because when I moved to Paris in 2001, it was far from a bobo area. And how long have you owned an apartment there?
We bought our place in 2017 and we moved here permanently just this past summer.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
And I love, by the way, what you did to the place since you moved here.
Thank you.
And the question, why did you choose to live in this particular area of Paris? Was it just luck or?
I think you'd have to say it was luck. We didn't know anything about the 17th before we bought there. We were looking in the 6th, the 7th, the 9th, and the 18th mainly. But the friend that was helping us look for an apartment found this particular one and thought we would really like the neighborhood. And we do. It's just perfect for us.
It's funny. I think a lot of times it is like that I think sometimes you don't actually know. You might think you know where you want to live. But then when it comes to actually being in Paris and experiencing it, sometimes it's a surprise.
Right. Exactly.
Do you feel right now, like when you first moved into the area, what did you feel like? How did you find it?
The area, when we first bought into that area, I mean, it was very lively. There's lots of restaurants and cafes and shops, and it was very lively. There seemed to be, the demographics seemed to be skewing a little older. But since we've been back this past summer, we've been, kept coming back every year several times. And we kind of watched it shift a little more every time we came. And this time, it's very lively. It seems like there's a lot more younger people here, a lot more young families. The energy is much different than it was before. So it's very exciting to be here. In fact, we have friends that live in the 8th and down in the 3rd. And they have both come up and said, oh, we just love this area. It's just so lively, so much more lively than ours. I said, oh, okay, good. Thank you.
I do think that people that have never visited, say, the Batignolles area of Paris, they are very pleasantly surprised. I think that they have no idea that this really kind of cool, hip, fun area exists in the 17th.
Right. Well, we feel it's a true Parisian neighborhood. And like I said, there's lots of families with small children and more. We're noticing this more singles. And we even noticed a couple of weeks ago, there's a new vinyl record shop around the corner from us. So I guess you could say that we're seeing more hipsters in the area. But there's no real tourist attractions in the 17th. So it's not an area that most tourists are aware of. But like I said, there's abundance of shops and restaurants and cafes, bakeries, butchers, designer clothing boutiques. And then the Batignolles market is directly across the street from us, which is fantastic. And then we have like 4 butchers and 3 bakeries just on our block. And then there's the Market Street, Rue de la Vie, the organic market every Saturday on Boulevard de Batignolles. And then there's the abundance of parks. We have the Square de Batignolles, which is just beautiful and so peaceful with its pond and wildlife. And then the newer Parc Clichy Batignolles, or the Martin Luther King Park, which is huge. It has lots of trails for walking and running. And then we're just a short walk from Parc Monceau, which is also in the 17th, and it's one of our favorite places in the city.
It's true that you are in a perfect location, and it's rare to have so much green space around you.
Yes.
I guess that's probably why it has attracted so many young couples and young families and things, because it does have an abundance of green spaces and outdoor spaces. Even by that church, just by Batignolles, there's a whole nice big area there where kids can play or families can sit out and dine, and the kids can run rampant outside.
Yes, plus right next to that Square de Batignolles Park, there's a dog run, which for us is terrific because we have 3 dogs. So that's very convenient, especially since, at least in the parks by us, you can't take dogs into the park, which is a little disappointing for us. But they have the dog run, and which is great because they get to interact with all the dogs. They get to be off the leash and run around, which is good.
I didn't realize that they had a dog run there.
Yeah, it's right next to the railroad tracks on that.
I saw that, well, quote unquote run. I saw that track or whatever. I hadn't realized it was for dogs, though. How cool.
Yeah, there's a little gate right at the end of the park there as you walk to the end of the park, and that's the dog run.
Huh. See, you just taught me something new about that area. And I guess, is there something that you wish that you knew about the Batignolles area before you moved there that you think our listeners should know?
The only thing I can think of is like when we first bought our place in 2017, our closest metro station was Brochant on line 13. And that 13 can be very crowded in the mornings and the evening. But we now have line 14 at Pont Cordonnet, which is one of the automated lines. And the service is wonderful because even when there's a strike, that line 14 runs because it's all automated, which is great. And it goes to a lot of different areas. And we can be anywhere in the city in 15, 20 minutes. It's very convenient where we are.
Yeah, I know what you mean about the line 13, since I'm also on it. And
yeah, right.
It's very regrettable at times. Yes, sardines in a can.
Exactly.
Most times.
We try to avoid rush hour times on the line 13 if we have to take it. So
yeah, I mean, as in terms of where it goes, it's convenient, but in terms of the amount of people, it's completely inconvenient. But I do think that over time, with the extension of the line 14, it should hopefully alleviate some of the stress on the 13.
I think it has. We've seen a lot of that. The 13's a lot less busy. It's still busy, but it is a lot less busy than it was before line 14 opened at Pont Cordonnet. And the Pont Cordonnet station is just beautiful. I mean, it's all brand new and it's huge, and the trains run on a really regular basis, which is nice to see. Very clean. The trains are brand new. It's really nice. Plus, there's a whole new shopping area above it, which is terrific, with a Carrefour, a nursery, and a huge drugstore, and a gym,
and Decathlon as well, too. And
Decathlon's there.
It's pretty amazing the way that they've really revitalized the whole area around Pont Cordonnet. Well, I guess because it's right on the border of Clichy as well, too, which is not in Paris, but almost in Paris. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
I guess I'd say if you're looking for an apartment to buy or rent in Paris, kind of like don't limit yourself to the areas that you're familiar with or have read about. Like I said, we knew nothing about the 17th, and now we can't imagine living anywhere else. I mean, we never would have thought to go to the 17th to even look. It was just, like you said, kind of one of those happy accidents, and just kind of let luck guide you to where you want to look. Don't be so set as that I have to live in the 3rd or I have to live in the 18th. Take your chances and go look at different areas. And I think you'd be surprised at a lot of the other areas that you don't read much about or hear much about.
Yes, definitely. And I mean, as you say, and I mean, as we said earlier too, sometimes you just get stuck on an idea for no logical reason. And sometimes it is just serendipitous that you end up to be in your perfect area or not. And I guess my big question finally, if money were no object, if you could do whatever you want and live wherever you want in the city of Paris, in any type of apartment, where would that be?
Wow. I guess because we love the outdoors and we love the parks that, we're close to now, I think probably either the area right around Parc Monceau or maybe somewhere around Luxembourg Gardens. I mean, those are just two of our favorite areas of town, not only the parks themselves and the gardens in Luxembourg, but just those areas of town are really beautiful. The architecture is spectacular. There's such a great vibe. I think probably those two areas.
So you would leave the 17th if you could, if money were no object, if you could have your dream apartment for Christmas or what have you.
Maybe, yeah. It'd be nicer, closer to a park that allows dogs, but Parc Monceau doesn't either, even though I've heard some people sneak in the early mornings and get their dogs in there and run around before anybody else comes out. And there are a couple of parks in Paris that do allow dogs. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but we just like those two areas. So
they are nice. And I do used to always, still when I go for picnics, Parc Monceau is one of my favorite places to go for a picnic.
It's just so beautiful and peaceful, and the surrounding buildings are just beautiful, and it's a great area.
Well, I mean, nobody's asked me that question, and I didn't even think about answering it because I do love living in the 18th where I live. But it's true. I think it would be fabulous to live in one of the buildings in Parc Monceau.
Yeah.
Right in there.
To open up, look out your back windows and see the park, that would be pretty special.
Yes, I think so. And so I guess if someone were to ask me that question, I guess in the end, I might just want to live in an entire building, a little hotel particulier in the Parc Monceau area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like you said, if money were no object, we can always dream.
If you're enjoying this episode of Paris, A State of Mind, you may also be interested in our sister podcast, Storytime in Paris. Join Jennifer as she asks 5 questions to authors who've been inspired by Paris. Paris, A State of Mind will be right back after a word from our sponsors. And now back to Paris, A State of Mind. Well, thank you very much, Bob. This has been really great. And before you go, I would like you to just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm from far away from Paris. I was born in Oklahoma and went to school there and spent about 30 years in Dallas, Texas, and the last 15 years in New York, doing marketing and advertising for most of my career, and retired a year ago. And this has been our dream for a long time, to move to Paris and be able to base here and travel around Europe to some of the places that we haven't been to. And it took us a long time to get here for many reasons. The dogs are a difficult challenge to get here because we didn't fly them. So we brought them over on the Queen Mary 2, which
amazing.
Took a long time to book and arrange because it's the only transatlantic ship that has dog kennels. So that is, again, something for if anybody's wanting to move over here with animals, that's a good option for flying them. It just takes a long time to book them because they're very hard to get. It takes about a year to schedule them. But so we've been here since June, and we've been working on the apartment and kind of switching it over from the rental unit that it was previously to our home. And that's what we've been doing.
Well, that's great. It sounds like you're living a lot of people's dreams.
It is our dream. It does come with challenges. Moving to a foreign country always has its challenges, and the French like their paperwork and their bureaucracy. But it's just getting used to that. It's a different mindset than the States. So.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's one thing that Marie and I always say in our podcast, that the French do love their paperwork.
Yes, indeed. Indeed.
And on that note, thanks again, Bob. And it was great having you on this episode.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great fun.
My pleasure. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Paris, A State of Mind, featuring Gail of Perfectly Paris and Marie of Loquim, both who are founding members of the SPLM. Paris, A State of Mind is produced by Paris Underground Radio. The music, Jazz in Paris, is by Media Right Productions. For more information on this show and others, go to parisundergroundradio.com.
This episode of Paris, A State of Mind was produced by Jennifer Garrity for Paris Underground Radio. For more great content, join us on Patreon at patreon.com/Paris Underground Radio.